survivors. We're going to interview first Mrs. Essie Lee Johnson Beck, age 85. And Mrs. Beck, I want you to just talk to Kevin, talk to me, just tell us what it was like to live in Tulsa, Oklahoma in 1921 when an elevator incident, a seemingly insignificant incident, could lead to a riot that eventually would claim over 300 deaths. Our commission can do that. Right now we can document at least 300 deaths. It could demolish 35 blocks, a 35-block area from Archer to Pine, destroying millions of dollars worth of property. This was an area so elite, it was called the Black Wall Street. Booker T. Washington called it that. What was it like living in Tulsa, Oklahoma at that time? And tell us especially what happened the day of that riot.
Well, being a little girl, it was, I was frightened, I was scared. And we had to get out of the way. And there were airplanes flying in the sky that seemed to have been dropping something down to the houses and setting them on fire. And of course we had to run to try to stay out of their way. And because we didn't want to get burned, and so we just kept running. And we were trying to get to an area where the Golden Gate Park was and go out there and hide. And we finally made it out there. My mother and about 2 or 3 of my sisters and brothers were ducking and dodging and running to get to the Golden Gate Park. That's what the park was called at that time. And we finally made it out there. And when the planes would fly over, we would see them dropping something to the rooftops of the different houses and setting them on fire. And of course we were crying and running and doing things like that. And we finally got out of their way and found somewhere to hide.
Do you remember what you were doing? Was it night when it happened? Some people said they started to flee in the middle of the night. Others said it was early the next morning.
And well, it was, as far as I know, it was at night when they started. But we didn't get out of our house until early the next morning. And they would tell us to stay away from the windows because they were shooting in the windows and things like that. And we would run and try to survive.
Did you see anyone get shot? Some survivors had relatives shot dead right by them.
No.
You didn't see anyone?
No, I'm so thankful that I didn't experience anything like that. But we saw the 1 or 2 planes flying over and looked like they would drop something from the plane to the roof of a house. And we saw the houses that were burning. There was smoke and things like that.
Now, where did you, you went straight to one of these shelters, convention hall, and the park. What did you all do? Some people slept, they said slept out in the open that night. Did somebody come and get you?
No, we ran.
You ran to Golden Gate Park?
We ran in groups. And we'd hide behind trees and things like that. And we finally made it out to the Golden Gate Park. That's what it was called at that time.
Did some of the troops, you remember seeing any of the troops, the soldiers?
The soldiers were on their way, but I don't remember seeing them.
When you, your house was burned, when you first came back, when did you see where your house used to be, and how did you feel? Did you lose? I've heard people say what hurt them the most, they like a prom dress that burned up, or their dolls. Or,
Right.
Yeah, so what did it feel like to be homeless?
It was awful. And we went to the Golden Gate Park, and we were supposed to stay out there, but it seemed like where they had places to stay were filled up by the time my family and I got around to it. So we seemed like we walked back to the basement of somebody's church. I don't remember what church it might have been, and stayed there that night. But my mother was able to keep the 5 children together, and my father was out helping them, and I don't know what he was doing, but he was supposed to have been helping to keep them from shooting us. And I didn't see any shooting or anything like that, but I did see houses burning, and we saw them trying to set one of the churches on fire, and it wouldn't burn. I don't remember what church it was, but we survived, and seemed like we spent our first night in a schoolroom, one of the schools, and the family, my mother and I, and my sister and brother. But my father was out on the streets helping them to rescue the rest of us. And that's about all I remember.
All right, would you tell me how you feel about this commission? Do you think we're doing the right thing, trying to set the record straight? And how would you feel about reparations? Do you think somebody ought to pay for the
I
loss?
sure do. I think we should be, and I had thought that they were going to give us money to start out all over again. But if they gave any, I didn't hear about it.
I understand they did put up some tents where...
Yes.
Did you all stay in a tent?
We lived in a tent.
Oh, what was that like, living in a tent during the winter?
It was something else. But that's all we had to depend on, so we lived in it.
Did you have a floor in your tent? Some people said their daddies said, you're not going to be on this dirt.
Well, we had dirt. We lived on the ground.
Okay.
And the tent was above, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And we made it. We made it. And I didn't ever get used to it. We were one of the ones who finally started replacing our house.
Do you know where your dad got his money? I understand some of the survivors had difficulty getting lumber. The local stores didn't want to sell them lumber, wouldn't loan them money. Some of them said, well, we had money and we kept it and our house didn't burn, so we used our own money. Do you remember where your dad got his money?
I think we used our own money. We didn't have much. And but they might have loaned my father some money. I was just 5 years old then, so I don't...
Some of the survivors had connections. They worked for some of the wealthy oil men, and they helped them get loans and things.
Yes.
But you soon had another home.
Soon had another house built.
That's good.